So I want you to kind of use your imagination here, if you will. The story I'm about to tell you is a story about a tree that was, it was the Douglas fir, just like this one. It was 12.5 feet on the average from side to side. It was a little over 13 feet going one way and 11 feet something going the other, but it was 12.6 on the average. And so it was a leaning tree like this. But I want you to imagine this tree being 12.6 on the stump and about 650 feet tall. And so now I'm going to start the story for you. My brother and I was down in Oregon at the time, and him and I were falling timber together. And we ran out of a job, so we went to the Forest Service. And back in those days, you could go to the Forest Service office and see if they had jobs, because sometimes they would hire just timber fallers to fall the timber, and then they would hire a logging company to skid it, and then trucking companies to haul the timber. So they did it all themselves, piece by piece. And maybe that made sense, I don't know. But we got hired to fall some timber. We didn't get very much information on it. It was a guy that my brother knew well. And he said, Dave, I wouldn't trust this job to anybody but you. So that was on a Thursday that we talked to him. Friday morning, we drove down to this job, which from our house was just right at 3 hours away. Drive one direction. And we would drive down the coast on the 101 highway until we got to, we went to Pistol River, Oregon, took a left and drove about, I'm going to say from memory, it was about 50 miles east, up into the mountains, up along the river. And so we met a forester at the gate. That's all locked up country now. It's all a wilderness now, I guess. But at that time, there was a gate there. And we met this forester there, and it wasn't somebody new. It was somebody that we had, Dave had worked with before. I hadn't. And so we drove into this country, and we got right to a turkey track in a road. We drove up this road, came right up on top of a ridge, and the roads went both ways, north and south. And then there was a road that turned off to the right and went downhill down this canyon away from us. Well, the forester parked on the edge of the road, right where the T was, and it was steep. I mean, it was like probably that steep. And so we get out and we walk over there, and he's standing on the edge of the road, and he goes, well, Dave, this is your unit. He said, the trees are all marked. All we need for you to do is cut the marked trees. You need to jack them back away from the river and up onto the hill, and we'll take care of getting them skidded from there. So we headed down over the hill, got our saws, our packs, all of our axes and wedges, and headed down over the hill. And first thing we came to after we got, you couldn't see anything. It was just solid timber and brush. So we walked down in there, and the first thing we encountered was brush like this. Just like this, only 15 feet tall. You couldn't get through it. Had to take a chainsaw, and couldn't get through it. So I had to put down the saw that I had, go back up to the pickup and get a small saw so we could cut the brush, just so we could get through it. Then we went down into the timber I was sawing away, and I came across a tree that was already fallen by natural causes. It was fallen on the ground, and it was about a foot or so off the ground, and it was up that tall. We couldn't climb over it. It was just too tall. Couldn't climb over it. So I had to cut my way through this brush, down the tree, this big old tree. I think it was 9 or 10 foot on the stump. So anyway, we cut our way down the tree a ways, going right alongside of it until we got to a place where there was limbs. And you can see that all these trees have limbs up there a ways. There's a good example right up there. They didn't have any limbs for 300 or 400 feet. 200 to 400 feet, let's say. So we got down to a place where there were limbs, and they were big limbs. I mean, they were 10 and 12-inch limbs where they were up against the tree. They were big limbs, and so we made a staircase out of that so we could climb up on the log, and then we made a staircase on the other side so we could get down. So just after we got down off of that tree, now mind you, we'd been going downhill all the time, and we ran across our first marked tree. And it was probably 6 foot on the stump, I'd say. But it leaned just like this tree leaned. And the river, the road right there could be the river, and then this was the uphill fork. But it wasn't too much different than this. It was down next to the river on a flat bottom. And so my brother said, "Hey, Pump, we're never going to be able to pick that thing up and get it back up the hill." He said, "I got the answer to this." So he started up. Our big saw at that time was an 075 still that I had. He started that up, and he just put an undercut in it and fell right across the river. So we packed all of our stuff down this draw, found another tree down there a ways, and we cut it. Well, I suppose, if I remember right, we cut either 4 or 5 trees that day. We didn't buck any. All he did was follow. So we quit for the day and walked out of there. Now, walking out of there, if you want to take a pan shot of that over there, it was brushy just like that. And this is true work. I mean, just hard work there. So we cut our way out of there, got back up on the road, and there was the forester standing there, and he said, "I'm guessing that you guys didn't even try to jack one of those trees back up the hill because you don't have any jacks with you." Dave said, "No, we didn't." He said, "You're not going to jack those trees up the hill." He said, "Doesn't matter what you do, those trees are never going to go up that hill." And he said, "Well, that's the contract. Either you're going to try to jack them or we'll find somebody else to do this." No, he said, "Well, we don't have any jacks. What do you want us to do about jacks? And besides that, we don't have chainsaws enough to cut this timber. We need way bigger chainsaw." So the guy says, "Well, I'll talk to the boss man and see if he wants to buy all this stuff for you." We go back to town to the Forest Service office, and he disappears. And pretty quick he comes back, and he hands us a credit card. And he said, "Anything that you need for this job, just put it on this credit card." And Dave said, "Well, we need jacks, and we need at least an 020 still with an 8-foot bar. Whatever you need, just go get it. This has to be done, and we'll pay the bill for it." So the second day, we went down there, and we followed our trail downhill into the woods that we had come out on the night before. But this time, we had to make 2 trips because we had to pack all the jacks down in there. Dave told the guy, he said, "We're going to ruin these jacks. There's nothing we can do. Every day or every other day, we're going to be bringing these back in here. They're going to be smashed flat, and that's what they want us to do." So the guy said, "Okay, Dave, then what I'll do is I'll just rent them to you. And then I'll just, whenever you drop them off, what we do is drop them off after work at night on the days that they were smashed. And then the next morning, we'd have to go to Coos Bay, get it in the drop box, which is outside. We take the jacks out and take them to work with us. We had to pack our gas and oil and wedges and everything that you needed down in. It took 2 trips. Well, it didn't take too long at this point because we were still relatively close to the road. So we went down in there, and the first tree we came off was probably about 9 foot. Now, these trees are maybe 24 inches. I didn't bring a tape with me. But the tree we were cutting that day, the second day, was a tree like this, only it was 9 feet on the stump. And so, and it leaned real heavy over the river. Now we're going to switch things. We're going to say the river's on this side and the uphill is on that side. And it was much like this ground right here. The uphill was right over there, but the tree was 500 feet tall. Now come here and take a look at this thing. When I fall this, I could fall this tree up the hill that way because there's some weight up in the top with all the limbs up there. But the tree itself leans down the hill down the road. And so what it would be easiest is just to move that buggy down there and follow this tree right down the road. But that's not going to happen. Not down in the woods where we were. So we had to try to figure out how to get this tree 9 foot falling up there. And so what you do is you make a cut back here in this. You make a cut on the back side, and then you put in seats about that big for the jacks to set in. And so then you come around here in the front of the tree, and you bore it like this, about 1 foot deep, wide enough for 2 jacks. And then you come over here and you do the same thing, wide enough for 1 jack, because that's what we had. We had a set of doubles and we had a single. And so you leave enough room in there for your bar to go in after you put the face in. So you jack those jacks up till they're tight. Then you take wedges, and every place there's not a jack, you drive a wedge in there to hold this thing up so it doesn't fall over. Then you come around on the front and you start making your back, you're putting your face in. And so you go in about 1/3 of the way and then come up, put a Humboldt, what they call a Humboldt undercut in it, where the notch is out of the bottom. And then you come back around and you start your chainsaw in there and you bore that in there. And all the time you're doing that, you're out here jacking the jacks. And this is a double bit axe, so you use a single. And then you go around and you drive those wedges up all the way around. And if you gain a little bit, that means the tree is moving. But none of those trees that we attempted to fall did they ever fall where we wanted them to go. Because they were so tall and so heavy that while you sawed that, it's kind of like the same principle a beaver uses when he's falling a tree. And I don't know if you know this or not, but a beaver will chew away on a tree and then he'll stop and he listens. They just stand there and listen. They're listening to see if any of the wood is cracking. And so if it's not, then they go back to chewing. And if it's not, then we go back to boring. And so while Dave's sawing, I'm over here on the ground. Pump up this set of jacks. Pump up that jack. Pump up this jack. Until you just can't go anymore. Pretty soon, two of you can stand on top of it. You can't get it to lift. And then you get up and you go around that tree and you drive those wedges up. And then they get to where you hit them and the axe bounces back. It won't go anymore. You hit the neck of it, bounces back. That's all you can do. So I'd get back over there out of the way and Dave would bore this tree, and pretty soon it would go pop. And when it did, it's time to move back. And then, typically, if you're walking away, that tree's going pop, pop, pop. And then it goes boom, pow, like you can't believe. And it breaks off, and it falls the way it wants to go anyway, which in this case was right across the river. Well, they didn't want us to buck any. If they went across the river, we were supposed to just leave them. So when it did that, when that tree went over backwards, it smashed those jacks into the stump. Just smash them, ruin them. So when it was on the ground, then we'd put just the rams in a backpack, 2 in one in another. And only the essentials did we pack out. Well, these things are fairly heavy. So as we progressed our way down the canyon, we'd get one tree. Typically, we'd get one tree every 2 days. And so as we got down the canyon, we kept working our way down there, and the trees would vary from 6 to 9 feet. But the only trees that were marked were those who were leaning drastically across the river, like that one down there. They were leaning so much there was no way. All the limbs, the top, everything was all going in the same direction. As we went, it went 3 weeks, I believe, from the day we started. We actually started falling timber on a Monday. And 3 weeks later, we came upon this tree that I'm talking about. It was huge. It was gigantic. We walk up there and look at this, survey it. Now on this side, over here, probably about 25 feet from this tree, say about right here, it was a rock cliff that went straight up, probably every bit as tall as each tree. And then it went just a few feet, and it made a 90-degree corner back that way towards the mountain. And on this side over here, on the riverside, it was 100 feet straight down from that stump to the rocks and the river below. And my brother walked up and looked at that and he said, "This makes me want to puke." I said, "What? It's going to be hard to get." And he said, "It's going to be impossible to get. No matter what we do to this tree, it's going to fall over that river." But he said, "This is what they're paying us to do, so we're going to do it." So a little ways away, probably 50 or 60 feet, there was a tree about this size. And so I went over and fell that while he walked back to the pickup to get springboards. And I don't know if you know what springboards are or not, but they're a device that back in the old days when they used to use these to fall timber, they had to get up off the ground because the butts were all swelled. And that one there was a good example for I got to show you. But as these trees get tall and heavy, they are so heavy that the butts of the trees can't support them. And so they start creating a metamorphosis, if you will. So the grains are going up and down the tree. Well, they start to crush and crumble, and so they actually get like a whiplash in them, and they come down and they compact, and so there's no more stringy grains in it. It's all just compressed together. And so if you want to put that into practical application, if you get yourself a donut and you put it on a platter, saucer, then you put your hand right in the middle of it and you push down until it's flat. That's what the stumps of those trees turn into. Instead of being like a really nice soft donut, it becomes a really hard, compact, pitch-filled piece of wood. And it's just harder than crap. I mean, they are hard. So anyway, I fell that tree. Right in front of the tree we were going to fall, I just set up a little sawmill, if you will, with my chainsaw. I cut some of those blocks in 4-footers, and I rolled them one way, and I cut some in 6-footers, and I rolled them the other, and then I started cutting slabs off of them. So when we laid let's use this tree. And so we would go all around this tree, where it was straight off the cliff, 100 feet. So that meant we had to bring in ropes and fall protection harnesses, and we took them up that cliff, tied them to a tree up there, and then threw them over, and that's what we tied off to, so if we fell, we wouldn't fall 100 feet. So we went all the way around this 12-foot tree, which was 2/3 of it. 2/3 of this tree were hanging over the cliff, with springboards and boards on top of them, so we had a walkway. Now, it took us, from the time that we got there on that Monday morning, it took us 2 days, 2 full days, to put an undercut in that tree, because we had to make the platform, cut the boards for it, all day long, just working our butts off. Finally, we got that walkway put in there. And so we talked about it some, and what would be the best to set our jacks in first, or to put the base in first. And so what we decided to do was put the jacks in first. So we went to work on that, and what you have to do, you have to go around and saw all that bark off. All of it's got to go away so you've got good wood. And so that takes hours, and it's dusty, it's nasty, that brown sawdust is getting all over you. So we're going to move on. We're going to take a bit of a walk and show you some more timber, some more ground, and finish the story for you. So we're gonna take you guys up here and show you a stump. I'm going to try to use that as an illustration to show you how these big trees that are leaning real heavy have to be fallen so you don't kill yourself. So, and I might point out right now that this job we took was so extremely dangerous that nobody in their right mind would have ever done it, but we did. Everybody in our family has sawmills. There's mine. I have a Lucas sawmill. My oldest brother has it's a band mill. And then my youngest brother, he has a circle sawmill that was developed in the Second World War. And we were lucky enough to find one that they were just going to scrap it. It was headed for the scrapyard to be cut up. And we saved it, and I'll be going down there this Saturday to work on that sawmill. And we're going to get it up and running in the next week or so we'll have some footage of that sawmill running. So, this tree, I fell this way on purpose. because it was leaning real heavy over the road out there in the fence, and I didn't want that to crash out there. So I put a face in here and then a flat spot. Over here on this side, I did what they called crippled it. I cut that so that when I come back here and started cutting the back part, all the weight would lean that way. And then when it did, I came in here and cut this, which had been crippled, and that weakened that so that tree actually swung in the air like this and went right between those two trees. And when it did, then I went ahead and cut the back part of this and left my holding wood on the top side, which is kind of what I'm going to explain to you what we did to that big tree. So we cut about a third of it like this much of it, crippled it. And we came around here and we cut all the way through here like this. Now this is a 12-foot tree, so we had a lot of meat to work with. So we cut this here, and then we put our jack seats in over here. We just actually cut this down about 8 inches and cut it like that and put our jacks in, and we started jacking on it. And then we went all the way around this 12-foot tree with wedges. And every place there was a gap wide enough to put a wedge in it, we put a wedge in it and drove it up, trying to follow it up there when it was leading it over there. And so after we did that, out of that walkway, we did that, we decided to go ahead and put the face in it, the undercut. So we came around here and bored in there, and we bored in there, and I stood back, and he bored in there until I saw the top move, until it physically moved a little bit. And so then he stopped, and he came around here, and he brought the undercut up. Well, we'd been there 3 weeks, and we'd never seen anybody. And just when he was going to transition from the flat part to put the undercut in, somebody yelled right over there, "Hey, coming in!" Oh boy, did that piss my brother off. You don't do that in the woods. You don't walk up on somebody falling a tree and just holler, "Hey, here I come." If you're going to holler, you holler from a long ways off so we can get everything stopped before we crush you dead. So here comes this guy, and he's just a little bitty guy, just a little bit bigger than that dog right there. Oh, he was a little guy. I'm supposing less than 5 foot tall. And there's no way he could have weighed 100 pounds. But he's all dressed up in his Forest Service uniform. Dave, my brother's a pretty impatient fella, so he goes to ragging on this guy. What are you thinking? You don't walk up on me in the woods and just come in unannounced. And anyway, Dave chewing his butt, and the guy says, "Well, hey, you better be careful the way you talk to me. I'm your boss." Dave said, "Good, I've been wanting to talk to somebody like you." Oh, he steps down away from that tree, and he said, "You mind telling me why we're going to kill this tree? Is there a good reason for that?" And he said, "Well, yeah, there's a good reason for that." He said, "We want to know how old that tree is." Dave said, "You mean to tell me we're going to kill that tree to find..." He said, "This is the biggest fir tree I've ever seen. The biggest fir tree that I know of. And you want us to kill it so you can find out how old it is?" Well, he said, "Yeah, that's pretty much it." And he said, "Well, what's with trying to fall them away from the creek? All that's doing is costing a lot of money. And there's no way that this tree leaning like that is going to fall the way we want it to go. It's going to fall where it wants to go." "Yeah, but nevertheless," he said, "we've got to try." Dave said, "Well, what is it you're going to do with this tree after we get it on the ground?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to bring in a helicopter. We're going to fly it out." Dave said, "This tree, you're going to fly it out with a helicopter?" He said, "There's no way. There's no way you're going to be able to lift this and get out." "Oh, yeah, we'll get it." So he said, "Well, I want to be here when this tree falls." Dave said, "Well, in that case, you got to come back tomorrow afternoon because we're not going to have this thing before that." "Okay," he said, "I'll be here." By the time we had spent 3 weeks there, we had to walk probably at least 1.5 to 2 miles down the hill into where this tree was. And that all takes time. So that morning we got down there, and the only thing we had to pack in that day was gas and oil. You know, got there just after daylight, and by the time we got packed down in, I suppose it was 7 o'clock or so. Anyway, started up the old chainsaw, and the little guy, I don't know where he went to, but he wasn't with us when we got to the tree. Anyway, the little guy shows up, and he walks right up to the stump. This is a good example. He walks right up to the stump like this, and he's standing on a root, sticking out like this. And it was the only place we had any whole wood. Dave said, "You better get back." He said, "You're going to mess around and get hurt or killed." "No," he said, "I want to stand right here while that tree falls." Dave said, "It's up to you." He said, "It's a damn fool trick to play, but he said it's up to you." So Dave went around and he started boring in the back, and I got down there and pumping up the jacks, and finally they were all maxed out. Matter of fact, the wedges were so tight that some of them I would hit with the axe, and they would shoot out of there and fly clear out into the river and down that 100 feet. Now Dave was sawing over there, and the little guy was standing. Oh, he wouldn't have been standing there. He'd have been standing right here. But there was a root that grew out here, went across the ground. So that tree went snap. We took off running. And then while we were running, you could hear it behind us going pop, snap, pop. We turned around just in time to see that tree stump lift about this much on this side and start tearing that root out. And he was standing on it, about here. Well, he realized what was going to happen, so he turned and he took off running. And he was running right down that tree root. And he got down there 20 or 30 feet, but by the time that this ripped out of the stump and lifted up in the air, it ripped that out. And I thought it was going to throw him over the cliff into the river, but it didn't. He was just starting to step off of this side of it when it ripped loose. And it just launched him up in the air. And I don't know how far he went, quite some distance, and we thought he was going to hit that rock cliff. But he didn't. He just missed it. Just went right past it, and he lit in some bushes, way like those bushes, way at the top. And they broke his fall, and so he came rolling downhill from one bush to the other. And I was kind of trying to watch that, but I was trying to keep an eye on this tree. And so when the root ripped out, it threw a bunch of dirt up in the air. Did a lot of stuff going on. And then that tree lifted up, busted off. It just shook the earth. It trembled so hard, just shook the earth underneath your feet. And that tree, with all the pressure being over here on this corner, broke off, and it launched off. It jumped in the air, up in the air, feet. I don't know how high. Jumped up in the air. And then if you've seen our videos, one of them we made here, falling a tree. The top gets to going, and then the whole tree bows because the top's moving way faster than the butt. And that's what this tree did, and it sailed out over that cliff. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. It was an absolutely beautiful sight. That great big old tree sailed out over that river, and when it disappeared out of our sight, it was perfectly flat where it went. When it hit the ground, the earth trembled again. This time it trembled so hard that I thought that we were going to have a rock slide from up above. And so I turned and looked to watch for rolling rocks. And the little guy, he was excited, man. He wanted to go over there to that stuff. And so we all went over there. And this is where we're going to end this story for right now. This is this episode. Oh, yeah, don't forget to share, subscribe, hit the gong button, do all that stuff you're supposed to do. It's all there on the right-hand side, I believe. So anyway, do all that and share these videos with somebody else, and we'll get you informed and try to teach you a little something while we're doing it. Thank you. Bye.